serene and peaceful and just magnificent. Absolutely magnificent in every way.
Luke 7:11. Soon afterwards, he went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went with him. As he approached the gate of the town, a man who had died was being carried out. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, rise." And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother.
Walking into the church in Nain is one of the most moving experiences for me on each of our trips here. It's a lovely church, and there is no one to take care of it. There is no priest, there's no deacon, there are no Christians in the village left to look after it in any way, shape, or form.
Those are prayers.
They are indeed.
It moves me deeply because I really am very, very fearful that coming to the Holy Land in the near future may be very much like that many, many places that we go to our spiritual sites. Oh goodness, there's wafers here. It is a very, very sad place. I thought that was just a bag and I was going to throw it away, but there's actually wafers there.
I mean, I think this is where the World Church does have a particular responsibility. People are happy to come here as pilgrims. What they don't always understand is that the worshipping life of the places that they visit as pilgrims is dependent upon the indigenous Christian community. For example, here in Jerusalem now, there are less than 8,000 Christians, whereas 10, 15 years ago there were 70,000. That gives you a sense of just how rapid has been that hemorrhage. Part of our task here is about raising people's awareness and understanding that, you know, okay, they've come on pilgrimage, they've come to visit the holy places, but they've come not only to see the stones, but hopefully they've also come to meet what our Bishop Ria always refers to as the living stones. And giving folk back some dignity and some confidence and hope, enough to persuade them that, well, maybe there is a future here.
You know, the old city is the old city. It must be one of the oldest melting pots in the modernized world. I mean, the old city of Jerusalem is this tight, intertwined ball of people all contained in this one very small area. So it's like crazy busy here. There's nowhere near this packed last time I was here, but obviously it is now.
It's a tiny place, but because it's such a busy place, because it's a melting pot of cultures and religions, it's home of all the children of Abraham. People find this a difficult place to get their heads around.
Tomorrow morning when we go and do the stations at 6 in the morning, we'll be starting from Antonia's Fortress, and we'll be walking through the markets, exiting what is called the Ganneth Gate. 7th station, Jesus falls for the 3rd time under the cross, on his way to Calvary, and that is the Holy Sepulchre today. There used to be a bishop here. His name was Bishop Kapikian. He died about 2 years ago, and he's the one that gave me enormous information about Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And one day there was sort of a sacristan here, a stone got loose, and that's when this whole thing began. You know, started to excavate, removing all this dirt, and they found Calvary. Calvary begins where that brother is standing behind you. What it is, it's a quarry pit again, where they used to quarry stones to build the city of Jerusalem. So they used to take those stones from here and build the city. What turned to be that there's this huge rock that they left sitting by itself, which today is called Calvary. It looks like a skull. It turned to be that it's bad material to use, and that's why it was left as it is.
If you filled in around Golgotha, it would be flat. But they excavated all the way around it, and then so they sort of created like almost like a 360-degree amphitheater around this one centralized raised point. And you could see that in a model that we saw earlier where, you know, it looks like there's this huge excavated hole with a big thing sticking up right in the middle of it, and that was Golgotha. So, oh yeah, and it's right outside the city wall, so anybody coming outside of the city would have walked right past that place. So it was a great place to make an example out of people. So there are many sites in Israel that may or may not be the actual place where something actually did or did not happen, but based on what I know about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and Golgotha, and incidentally our opportunity there with Iyad, our guide, who was able to provide us access to areas of the church that, again, are not generally available to the public. I'm convinced that that's the actual spot.
Remember when you read from Matthew? It was noon and darkness, remember? And that's when the earth shook, when Jesus died. And the curtains at the temple, and the rocks were split. So this is the split that might have taken place. And right on top where Jesus was crucified. And so all of this that you see was man-made to be close to where Jesus is.
For me, that's the most significant place because I really believe that is the actual spot where Christ was crucified. And it's a very powerful moment.
Walking the way of the cross here in Jerusalem is a strange experience. It's a very powerful experience, but it will excite all sorts of responses, not only in yourselves, but in the people who are in the streets too.
What so impresses me about walking the stations of the cross is that there is a context, a living context to walking those stations, and we find ourselves in the midst of people as they go about their daily lives, and they're pressing past us, and it must have been like that in Jesus' day too, as Jesus carried his cross to his death. And so as I experience offering my devotion, it's wonderful to offer that devotion in a living context. And thanksgiving for all who see with God's eyes and who recognize love and beauty where we may see only ugliness and squalor, for every act and occasion of compassion and caring, and for all who feel for God in those who are suffering.
I carried the cross to the 7th station, and a man crossed himself as he passed me. And I cried. I was out in front. I am in the lead. Nobody else sees this man, and he crosses himself and passes me by. And it was really very special. That sort of summed up the whole week as far as I was concerned.
And it's a very powerful experience, and it moves people in all sorts of ways. Some folk will just simply ignore us, whereas others